That's when I said, I have to create something on my own. Nobody's going to hand me this thing. Nobody's going to create it for me. If I waste too much time here, this kind of flash of fame is going to be completely gone. And so I've got to get to work. We've got to create something that people will grab onto. And that's, where Generous came.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Screw It, Let's Do This podcast, a podcast where we interview entrepreneurs about their story. I'm your host, Shelby.
And I'm your host, Therese.
And today we have a super exciting guest coming from Warsaw, Indiana, Ben Higgins.
Woo! Thank you, Ben, for joining us today. Can you give us a little bit of background about yourself and your business?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for having me. I grew up in Warsaw, Indiana. And so that's where I'm at right now. Every July, I take a little bit of time to come back home, to sit on the lake, to let my dog swim, to just be with family. And then recently, which I'll talk about more, we just opened up our offices here in Warsaw for my business, my primary business, Generous Coffee. But like I said, I grew up here, went to high school here, and then went to Indiana University. After Indiana, I moved to Peru for a few months because I couldn't find a job at a college.
What? Okay, sorry. Keep going. Don't let
Couldn't
me
find a
stop you.
job. And then when I was in Peru, I did get a job offer in Denver, Colorado for a tech company. They were doing settlement and clearing in the financial services space. So I moved out to Denver for this job, writing user manuals for this software that nobody knew about or would ever see. And that's when kind of the big life pivot for me happened, where one day one of my coworkers came down and she's like, I love this show. It's called The Bachelorette. And I was like, I'm familiar. And she said, you're working all the time. You don't like your job. You're not dating. And you haven't really made any friends in Denver yet because you're working all the time. You should sign up for this show. And I said, I don't know exactly how to do that. And I don't know if I would ever do it. Like, I just think I would have been like, that's a great idea, and never done it. And so we went up to her office, we sat down, we signed this application form, and then they called. And that's kind of where then a lot of the switch in life happened, right? I went on The Bachelorette, I became The Bachelor. And then now, obviously, as a business or as my profession, then I was able to start a couple businesses and work for iHeartRadio at the same time to keep these businesses alive. And so that's kind of where I sit today still. It's like, and now it's less of I'd say my life through the 20s or later 20s was a lot of creating and building things, which is really exciting, but also very scary and stressful. And now I'd say life into my 30s has been a lot more about kind of building foundations around the things that were built that lasted through my 20s, that felt like they had some significance, some impact, and maybe hopefully some success.
Wow. That kind of sounds like where we're at right now. We're in our I consider us our late 20s.
You're
You're
late. I'm more mid.
I'm going to be 28 this month. And so anyways, that's how I know, grab out the cane. Okay. Anyways, so I just feel like we're in that point where we're creating, we have all these big ideas, and Shelby has like 3.5 businesses, maybe a fourth. I'm not really sure. And same with me. So we're really like enjoying it. I feel like the grind, but the hope is that as we get older, we can settle into what our business is and what really aligns with us. So can you dig more into your businesses? So obviously Generous Coffee is a big one, but what else are you up to?
We've done some research that we had no idea about some of them. So
yeah, you're an author too. What are you not? Maybe it's easier to start with what are you not? No, but really,
I'm not a lot of things.
What are you then?
Yeah, so I mean, I think probably similar to your story, I was working in this desk job, and it was good for what it needed to be, but it was kind of I just was checking a box. I was going to work, I was getting my health care, I was getting paid, I was going into work on time, leaving, late at night. And I think it kind of was an identity switch crisis for me, where I was like, what is this all about? Like, is this what my life now looks like for the next 30, 40 years? Is this what this season looks like? It's where I'm a robot. I don't really have a passion. If I do have passions, they have to be done after work or before work. And I'm exhausted because I'm not great at my job. And so I'm working all the time. And I was asking a lot of those questions, which is why when people ask me today, do you ever not want to talk about The Bachelor? Or are you ever upset that you did it? I say, I've never been upset that I did it. If anything, I mean, there was definitely some difficulties along the way and some hard roads and hard seasons through that time. But what it did allow me to do was to switch things up again, to make something new in my life. And so, anyways, I was working at this desk job. iHeartRadio called me, and when iHeartRadio called, they said, "Hey, we have this show that we're creating. It's a podcast. It's breaking down kind of things in pop culture. We know they're talking about me that I don't know pop culture, nor do I love it, nor will I ever try to love it. But we need a host to keep us on time. We have a co-host for you. She's from the show as well. She loves pop culture. She loves everything about pop culture. She knows who's dating who and why they're dating who. The two of you, I think, would be really good together." And so I started doing this podcast twice a week from the closet of my office. I had a little phone back in the day, 8 years ago when we started the show. I was calling into iHeartRadio. They were tapping my co-host Ashley in as well, and we were recording a podcast talking on a phone. It was a wild west. It was a wild world. But that started to pick up some traction, some speed, and become a success. And so it started paying me well enough where I thought, hey, I can leave my full-time job and just be a podcaster, which initially sounded really great. But what I was realizing was I was feeling, again, that purposelessness after a few months of just recording episodes. It wasn't taking up a lot of time. And it was, again, about a topic I really didn't care about. And so I kind of went on a soul searching trip to Honduras, a place that means a lot to me, a place that I've been 30 plus times in my life. And Buddy and I went down there to kind of say, what's next in our life? Like, what can we do that brings us passion and a purpose while I still work at iHeart? And we one day came across this coffee farm. And what we saw at this coffee farm was that the coffee farm was in one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my life. It's up in the mountains in this jungle, but it's incredibly isolated from any other kind of communities. And so the people that are growing our coffee are usually fairly poor. They don't have clean water. They lack infrastructure. They lack education. They lack transportation. They also lack any type of other jobs. And so you usually are born into this coffee farm. You work the coffee farm. You pass it on to the next generation. And honestly, I fell in love with that story because what I do love, I love coffee and I love the beauty of coffee, but I also know there's a better way. I know there's a better way for these people to get a fair wage, a fair income, to be highlighted, to be shown, to be celebrated for the work that they do because they pick every bean of coffee by hand, no matter how the quality is. And so the coffee that we're drinking every day is being picked by hand, put on their backs, carried up and down a mountain all day long, dried out, then shipped to the US where people roast it like generous. And we sell it. And so came back home a week later, had this crazy idea. I was like, God has blessed me more than I ever believed. This podcasting world of mine is paying me more money than I ever thought I would make. And it's taking up less time than I ever thought I'd ever have to work. And so what could I do now to satisfy this desire that I have to be a part of human stories and to help people? And the idea that we came up with was to create a for-profit business selling coffee, specialty grade coffee, so that we were buying it at a fair price so that the producers themselves could be benefited, selling this coffee online and wholesale and promotional and gifting items, and then donating 100% of our profits to nonprofits. And so I found a few buddies who had been able to make it in life kind of at an early age or maybe a little later in life. They kind of were financially secure. We put this company together, launched Generous, and today we still exist and we still donate 100% of our profits to nonprofits. It's going to be up over $250,000 in donations coming into this next year. Over 25 nonprofits that have been able to be benefited from it. It's been an incredible story, but that's my now full-time job. That's where I spend most of my time, and my focus is marketing, selling, talking about Generous wherever I can to whoever wants to listen.
Wow. That was really, what a pitch. I mean, what a good story. That was cool.
It's a pitch too.
Yeah,
you
no,
should go buy it. Yeah.
No, I mean, that was really well spoken. And I have some questions. I mean, I'm curious, like Honduras, like why you said you've been there 30 times. Why?
Well, so That's a very big question in my life, and it would take a lot of stories to kind of get you up to speed. But I'll kind of tell you the general umbrella here. Is when I was 15 years old, my parents' small group from their church went on a mission trip to Honduras, and they took all of us, all the kids along, and a lot of these kids are my buddies. We went down in these communities in Honduras, and it was an incredible experience. It's a beautiful country, beautiful food, amazing people, a lot of activity, but it's obviously very different there than it is here in the United States. And we would go to these communities with this first organization, and we were passing out food boxes. These food boxes, hopefully would give a family enough food for a few weeks. But we were giving them food boxes and then telling them, hey, if we give you a food box, you're going to come to church with us tonight. And that transactional kind of experience felt really weird to me, even back then. I don't know if I was smart enough or had the experience enough to put words to what was actually happening. But this was not a disaster relief scenario. This was just, they were living their everyday lives. And our gift to them was a food box, but as a transaction, hey, we'll give you a food box, but you're going to also attend church. And as somebody whose faith tradition and as a Christian, it means a lot to me, it still felt very dirty. It felt very weird to me that that's how we were interacting with these people. And so I came back kind of angry from that first trip. But there's a lot of things I still loved about Honduras. And I just kind of telling my buddies, like, hey, this has upset me. Like this, I don't know why. I don't know why I'm mad. I don't know why I'm angry, but this feels very weird. I don't understand what God's doing here. I don't understand what these people are doing there. And over time, about 3 years later, two of my buddies came up with this idea of what if we went back to Honduras, started a separate organization, but this organization was built on these core tenets. We asked them in these communities, what do you need? What do you want? What do you dream of? And how can we help? And we let them guide us. So we might help with the fundraising. We might help with the capital. We might consult a little bit on these projects, but they're guiding us in their vision and what they want for their communities so that their culture is kept in place, so that their dignity is kept in place, so they don't feel like zoo animals, so that everybody's coming down to do poverty tourism. And we're just partners with them. And we help build these businesses. We can help create some schools, but we can do it alongside of each other. And so that launched when I was, still in my teens, and a couple of my buddies maybe were early 20s.
Wow, entrepreneurial early on. We'll get into that.
Yeah. And it went really well. And the success stories were coming out of it. And I was just going down a lot, I guess, to visit the people and to work on these projects and to help kind of keep up the speed. It was kind of my job through college. And then I ran across a couple stories. One was this young lady who was my age. She had 4 kids, and they said they wanted a clean water tank in their community. So we helped put in a clean water tank. And I went down, I was having lunch with her in her house. And I said, what's it been like to have clean water for the last 6 months? And she looked at me, and this is like my moment. I was like, this is where I'm called to be. This is a place I need to be. This is a lane I need to choose to stay in, because she said, for the first time in my life, which I was probably 20 at the time, I never realized that I woke up with diarrhea every day. And she's like, for the first time in my life, I no longer have a stomach ache. And now I believe that my kids won't have stomach aches and their kids won't have stomach aches. And she was asking me questions like, do you know how hard it is to be a mother of 4 at 20 years old and have a stomach ache every day? Do you know how hard it is to be in 110-degree humidity, working outside and have a stomach ache every day? And I'm like, I can't imagine. And so that was kind of the first tangible story that hit me to where I said, this is good. This is helping. This isn't hurting. And this can continue. And so then it just continued to be a responsibility, a privilege, a calling, whatever, all those things on my life. And it's a place that I've chosen to invest some time into.
Do you speak Spanish? Just wondering.
Not well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She does. She wanted to speak with you a little bit.
No. That's my dream. Like if I had a genie wish, it'd be to be fluent. But I've spent time, like I studied abroad in Spain, and I was just in Ecuador and Peru, and I'm always looking for opportunities to chat.
You'll have to go down to the coffee farm.
Well, it's so funny that we're talking about Honduras, because I just had dinner with my husband's family. They go down to Guatemala every year for missions trips. And they just had that family that they visit on their farm, the Guatemalan family. And one of them is married to a guy from Honduras. So I was asking about Honduras. And so here we are talking about Honduras again.
In October, I'm taking a trip leading a bunch of people down there. So feel free to join us.
Stop. How many places?
Okay, Ben, don't give her this invite, because she will.
How do I
sign up? It's a real invite.
How do I sign up? Is it
I'll send you all the information. It's very quick and easy.
Okay.
Wow.
I look forward to making a trip to Honduras. I'm serious. I'm always trying
I
to get
know.
out to
She really
Spanish-speaking
is.
countries.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love for you to come.
Yeah, no, I'll be there, and we'll see if we can get Shelby to leave the country.
Okay. Deal.
My feet stay on the soil.
Yeah, no, well,
I'm scared.
well,
Anyways, I live through you.
yeah,
Well, that's super cool. I got chills like multiple times
Yeah.
from you telling those stories. That's
Yeah,
awesome
what a,
that you
like,
found that.
what a cool. I mean, at such a young age for you to have kind of a heart of service and philanthropy. I mean, and entrepreneurship, which is a question we always ask our guests. So you've been interested in entrepreneurship, it sounds like, since early on. Like, where does that stem from?
It's a good question. Well, I think, yeah, early on, I think in my life, even as a kid, I was, creating little things to make money or acting like I was a salesperson on a phone. I think it's been exciting to me. I think it's a challenge that I am really like have always been really excited for. I think right now, if I was to answer that, I haven't thought through that, like kind of where that passion comes from. I think a little bit of it too is rejection. So I think out of college when I wasn't offered a job, and then even after I was on the television show and people expect money just to flow in from that, and it wasn't, it doesn't, and I think that's a big shock to a lot of people. I think there was a switch in my brain at some point that said, if I want to do anything, I have to create it myself, or I have to invite others to create with me, which has been probably the better way to say that because it hasn't been all me doing this. And that's kind of where it comes from. Is if I want to work to help fight injustice around the world, then I either need to team up with organizations doing it already, or I need to create something on my own. If restaurants, or the podcast, or like some of the hydration drinks, like anything I've been a part of, it's been, hey, let's do something that I see there's a problem in this world, and I think I have a decent solution, maybe not the solution, but a decent solution. Now let's go see if we can create it. And a lot of times it hasn't worked. I mean, I've had multiple failures, multiple businesses that I've been really excited about that have opened up and shut down.
Wait, I want to hear them.
Yeah.
Let's
Okay.
let's go
How many
through
are we
this.
talking?
Yeah.
Probably four that come to mind right now. I'm sure if I look through I have a list of all the things. So like one was an app that was, I thought it'd be really cool to do like an app that did big scavenger hunts around communities to get people to go to specific spaces that were needing the marketing and promotion. So those places could pay us to get them to be used as a location on this app. And then it'd be a big scavenger hunt that was going on all the time. And there'd be prizes given if you went to all the spots and all this stuff. That never caught on. Another one was a kind of a little media company called Mahogany Workplace. Supposed to be a place that really connected true stories of people around the world. Another one was a podcast called Hope Still Wins. Hope Still Wins was probably the one I was most passionate and most excited for because I was going to be highlighting leaders' stories and sharing their experiences in a real raw way. Because what I've realized as I've been able to be around more people who I've always looked up to, doesn't mean I don't still look up to them. It just means they're more human than I ever imagined. And they have maybe got a couple lucky breaks in life. They've also had to work really hard. They've also had the right people around them. They have a spirit of humility. And I wanted to highlight that to show that those people are approachable, that they're not doing something insanely different than anybody else, and that we're all human trying to figure this thing out.
So okay, podcast, and then what came after that? I mean, you had another podcast opportunity, or you were already doing the other one before?
I was already doing the other one when Hope Still Wins started. And then let me think here.
You have a book, right?
I have a book.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's huge.
but that came out. I wrote a book. So through this kind of season of my life, I had started writing in a journal. I was really struggling with the questions of what is this whole thing for? What is life all about? What in the world am I doing? How in the world did I end up on this show? What do I do with this platform that's been gifted to me and handed to me? And so I just started journaling all these thoughts because my mind was swirling all the time. And then one day a publisher came and said, "Hey, do you ever want to write a book?" And I said, "I don't think so."
Here's my journal, publish this.
Yeah. And I pretty much said, I have a journal and that I don't mind sharing all these things. And the hope from that book was kind of coming off of my time as the Bachelor, is when my storyline was that I felt unlovable or unlikable, however you want to say it. And that the more people got to know me, the less they would like me, or the less they'd love me. And that's always been an insecurity of mine. So the book was written kind of with the hope that somebody would close it and simply say, "Hey, I'm not alone." that, these crazy thoughts that I have, or these insecurities that I have, I'm not alone in these. Like, other people have these too. If anything, Ben has them. So if Ben has them, then by default, I'm not alone. And so the hope was that that book would help people feel less alone. And it came out right at the heart of COVID. I mean, nothing like having a book about connection and getting together and community, and having it come out right in the heart when nobody can meet up. It could be viewed two ways. Either it was perfect timing because people needed it then, or it was terrible timing because all the stuff that we're going to do around it could no longer exist. And so, it was something I'm very proud of, something I'm very passionate about, but also something I never really felt the success of, because when it got released, anybody experiencing that book and reading it, I was no longer to get face to face with, so I couldn't really connect with their story.
Did you ever get that moment once,
I've gotten it a few times. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been like seasons or run-ins that I've had where somebody's like, "I read your book and it meant a lot to me," but like not a ton.
Mm, maybe fire up a book tour? I don't
Yeah,
know. I
hey.
don't know if it's too late for that. But I mean, it sounds like
Years later.
a great, yeah, 2 years later, relaunch, new cover art. We're
Yeah.
relaunching. Anyways, I mean, that sounds like an awesome. I'm a big journaler, so I'm like, I bet if I read that, I'd be like, yeah,
Yeah, you are.
yeah,
I'm not as much.
yeah.
You can
But
read it or listen to it on Audible.
Oh,
it's
is it on
Audible.
Spotify
Wow.
though? Spotify has free
I don't
audiobooks
know.
now?
I don't know if it's on a
Probably is.
Spotify. I hope.
Well, I canceled my Audible, so we'll have to look into that. But okay, cool. And then, so is there anything else after the book? Did we miss any other businesses?
Well, the restaurants are a big piece of my life now. So we have 22 restaurants kind of in
Excuse
the
me.
Denver.
What? 22? We
We have a
found
lot of restaurants.
we found
What?
one.
How do we
Yeah.
miss this in our research, Shelby?
I can tell you all about them.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
yeah. How
How'd
did
you
this
get
start?
into the food
Yeah.
business? Yeah.
So there's a restaurant here in Warsaw where I'm from that is I've always romanticized. It's a little steakhouse kind of in a modular home. So it's not super fancy, but it was this like good old Indiana steakhouse. And we always go there for our like birthdays, celebrations, etc. And the owner always sat in this corner table. It was a big circle, and he'd always have a bottle of wine, and he'd have a cigar, and he'd have his books laying out in front of him, like his accounting books, and he'd be doing his accounting. And then his friends would come in and sit with him and have dinner, and he would pour him a glass of wine, and they would laugh and they would talk, and then he'd go right back to work once they left. And as a kid, I was like, that dude is awesome. Like, that's who I want to be. And I moved out to Denver, and again, didn't have any friends, didn't know anybody out there. And so I moved into a house right next to this little bar called Highland Tap and Burger. And Highland Tap and Burger in Denver was a spot that I would visit almost every evening to have dinner there, because I just was it was allowed me the space to be around people. And so I'd go and I'd sit at the bar, have my dinner, and there were regulars that were doing the kind of the similar thing, or they would come in on certain nights, and I was getting to meet people there. It was really fun, and it started to feel like a kind of a Cheers or a family atmosphere. And one day the owner of that restaurant came and sat next to me, and he said, "Hey, the spot next door is closing down. I want to start an Italian restaurant, and I want to do it with friends and family, and I want to do it with people I trust. And so do you have any interest in partnering with me on this?" And I didn't have any money at the time, but I was like, "Okay, well, here's the deal. I can work." And I had my grandma had just passed away and given me like $10,000. And I was like, I think I got $10,000 in my bank account. So I can give you that and my efforts and my work, and let's go. So we started opening up restaurants. The big one for me, the one I had a lot of investment in, a lot of time, was Ashkara. That's a Mediterranean restaurant in Denver. And that's after The Bachelor was when that opened. So that allowed me a little bit more financial flexibility to invest a little bit more into that. And then from there, that success of Bardo, our Italian, Highland Tap and Burger, and Ashkara, we started rolling everything up to invest into new restaurants. And so before you know it, I guess we have 22 restaurants. We're going into the Denver airport. So if you fly through Denver, you can come check us out. And that's been a big piece of my story over the last, couple of years, I guess.
Wait,
You just glazed right over those.
Yeah.
22. Oh my gosh.
I know we're here to talk about Generous Coffee, and now it's like, oh, also 22
I know.
restaurants.
Well, we're in the food
Well, Generous
business,
is
so-
my kind of main, like, so when you think about my day to day now, I mean, with 22 restaurants, a staff has been hired, experts have been hired. I don't have to do much anymore. They exist. They're there. They're something I'm very proud of. But I'm very hands off at this point. Generous is still the one thing that I keep my hands very close to.
But
When
the early days of the restaurant, like, were you
Yeah.
in the back, like, chefing up or,
Not
waitering?
chefing, cleaning, and like I would bartend a little bit, mostly that kind of stuff. Maybe like seating,
So going
hosting.
from like 3 or 4 to 22, are you guys like a restaurant group now? Or do you
Yeah, it's called
Okay.
Culinary Creative Group.
Wow.
Oh.
And these are all in the Denver area, you said?
Mostly, we have a few in New Orleans, so we have 2 in New Orleans. We have a couple projects now. So anything from here on out will be outside of Denver. We've kind of tapped out the capacity in Denver, and so now it's looking at some of the other growing cities or some of the other cities that appreciate, high quality food, casual date night spots is what
I
I
know a
call it.
great city for this.
Madison,
Madison.
Madison,
Wisconsin?
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yeah, the culinary scene here. I mean, we were just on Top Chef. Is it called Top Chef?
Top Chef.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
were the city for Top Chef. I'm not sure if you watched is it Food Network? Is it
Yeah.
on the Food Network?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I have to
Yeah,
watch it too.
Madison, there's a lot
Yeah.
going on.
Well,
Just
so
check it out.
I think I'm still stuck on the fact that the guy just came up to you and you're like, take all my life savings.
Yeah. Isn't
There
that
was
weird?
no holdback.
Well, I'm sure there was, but I was like 25 and never expected myself to have any, need for any type of finances. I was scraping by. I was not making any money, and so I never thought I'd have to ever have any money. I was doing just fine, just kind of keeping it
In and
simple in
out.
life. Yeah, in and out was how I kind of pictured it. And so, yeah, I was like, this sounds fun. Again, I had romanticized the idea of restaurants and what it could be and mean for my life. And, one thing I think in that season of life is I was really searching to create a story that I could be proud of, but also that I thought others could be proud of because I was kind of not finding it, right? I wasn't exactly creating a great story at my current place of employment. I wasn't like crushing it in Denver. I think a lot of my life at that point was what can I do to try to find some legitimacy, to find a seat at the table in this world? Because right now I just kind of feel like I'm on the outside looking in. And I thought restaurants, right or wrong, could have given me that, like, hey, come visit me in Denver, friends all over the US. We have a restaurant we can go to. I think that was a piece of it too.
When you walk in there, are they like, "Oh, Mr. Higgins, here's your seat"?
Sometimes. I mean, no,
But
no,
you have a
I
seat in the
don't get
corner
that
with,
respect.
with a cigar and
Um,
a bottle of wine. And
Yeah.
yeah, they, we have so many new faces. I mean, our group now, has 700 employees, and so not everybody knows anything about any. I mean, no, there's not that level of respect, nor would I want it.
Yeah. Do you still get recognized when you, like, go out and about?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people that are fans of The Bachelor really love The Bachelor, and they've seen a big piece of your life play out in like they're very connected to you. They've seen you date, they've seen you cry, they've seen they've understood your insecurities. They've maybe seen you go through a breakup, they've maybe seen you have success, like all and so as a result, they've seen a huge chapter of your life. And so, yeah, people are still very connected to that. And then I get married, and my wife is like, doing the skincare, and she's crushing it, and she loves it, and she's passionate about it, and she's really good at it. And so now it's been really fun for me to kind of take that back seat because I'm not great at the celebrity thing or the fame thing. It's not exactly a world that I ever feel that comfortable in or understand how to navigate well. But she has this like skill set that she can communicate and that people really gravitate towards. And so it's been really fun to see people now kind of get excited about her and what she's doing. And I now get to take that back seat. And so, yes, we definitely do, probably most days, but it's never, the cool thing about The Bachelor is when people come and say hi to you, they're not just like, I recognize you from something. It's like, hey, how is life? I
Yeah.
saw that you were doing this last week or whatever. And it's like, hey, friend, let's talk. I don't know.
Shelby is a big,
Okay, I don't
big Bachelor
you make
girl.
me sound weird, but yeah, I mean, especially, like, I think I was 16, 17 when you were on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my friends and I,
Wait,
yeah,
what year would that be?
like, we were in high school. I don't know, what year were you The Bachelor?
2017,
Okay,
2016.
no, I was older than that.
No, you would have been a junior. Oh, wait, never mind. You would have been in
In
college. Never
college.
mind. I watched one season and it was in high school and his name was Sean, I think,
Sean Lowe, yeah,
with the
of
blonde
course.
hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just vividly remember, like, getting, like, especially your season. I don't know why. I mean, you were, like, very big at the time. So I'm not trying to be weird, but yeah, I mean, Therese isn't so much of a Bachelor person, so
Yeah, so I mean, I've watched I don't watch a lot of reality TV though.
yeah,
I mean, I was
I
stuck
do.
SpongeBob and that was it, and
She
then I
was
stopped.
homeschooled.
Yeah.
How involved are you still with, like, Bachelor Nation? Like, were you invited to, like, the golden wedding, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, yeah, I went to the golden wedding. I had a great, segment where I was dancing all alone on a dance
I
floor.
swear I saw you, but I couldn't remember, and I didn't
Um,
research this before.
it's pretty forgettable. And, so I did go to the golden wedding. I've gone in and out of being involved and not involved. I think right when I got off this show, I was more involved because of the relevancy, the timing, and the show was very like kind of was still on a similar path. When I was done, it was kind of having the same kind of vibe. I was young when I was the Bachelor. I was 26, and so I was still like in the same age group. I mean, I still am. I'm 35, and people today going on the show are 35. So like I'm still, even though I'm years removed, I was kind of very closely, aligned and aged, and so they were using me a lot to come back to host dates, to do that. As of recently, in the last maybe 4 years, not as much. I don't exactly even know why. I think I would love to always be involved with the show. It's been really good for me.
Well, your podcast hits on a lot of Bachelor stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, that keeps me with a foot in, but that's not because of the show. Again, that's something that we had to create on our own to, not only monetarily benefit from the time on the show, but also to still have a foot in the door with the show. And so, yes, like that was something that was created separately from, Warner Brothers or ABC or the Bachelor franchise. So, it goes in waves right now. And right now, I'd say I'm not involved at all. Other than the golden wedding, I don't do much with the show.
Good old golden wedding. Well, hey, if we get
Yeah,
a second one, maybe you'll be at that one too.
Oh,
that'd be good.
wait, I actually have a question. When I think the most interesting thing about this is like you were on The Bachelorette and then you had asked to be the Bachelor. Does that just happen or do you apply? You're like, hey, I think I could be the one.
No, it just kind of just
You have to be a
happens.
favorite.
Yeah,
It's an
yeah.
honor then. Wow, that is so cool.
Thank you
Wow.
for that. It is an honor. They just kind of ask, honestly. Like there's no formality to it. It's like
Did you negotiate with them?
you can back now more than you could back then. Back then, everybody was kind of more closed lip about like what they were getting paid or what they would negotiate into the contract and not. Nobody was really talking about it. And I think over the last few years, with social media, with people being able to connect easier. When I was the Bachelor, I remember I had to search for Sean Lowe's phone number to call him one day and be like, "Hey, what should I expect?" Now I could just message him on Instagram and be like, "Hey, man, I'm about to be the Bachelor. What do you have to tell me about this?" Now I think there's a little more negotiation. There's a little bit more of a standard of what you can expect. Back then, it was kind of like the Wild West. Like I don't know what so and so got paid. I don't even know what I should be adding into this, and so let me just sign whatever you send me.
Mm. I just remember we went to Caitlin Bristol's live show when she was here, and she talked a little bit about that, how she like negotiated a bit. And obviously, she was right before you.
Yeah.
So I just wondered if you had heard about that.
Well, she was my bachelorette,
I
so she
know.
Wait,
was
wait,
I know.
what?
yeah.
I know you didn't know that, but
I
yeah,
didn't
he
know
was
that.
on her season.
Oh, well, Shelby brought her a shot on stage.
I did.
Well, that's sweet.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
Caitlin's great. She's still a great friend, and her and I get along awesome. Caitlin, I mean, she would not be mad at me for saying she just does things differently than I do. So maybe he did
Yeah, I
negotiate,
can see
and
that.
yeah, we just function differently.
Yeah.
So I'm sure she did, and more power to her. She knew she was a star.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I have one final question about this. When you did find out that you were gonna be the guy, what was going on in your head? Like, how did you feel? Did you, because you mentioned, like, you felt this lack of maybe purpose or maybe it's insecurity that people didn't like you. I mean, at that moment, all that must have been to the side or not.
Well, I'm a very complex person. So I'm imagining what I felt was excitement turned into some unwarranted confidence, maybe you'd call it ego, and then into like a Truman Show experience where I started to question everything and be like, this is one big joke. They're out to mess me over. They're using me. They're gonna, use and abuse me and push me aside. That's usually how like most big cool things in my life work, where I enjoy them at first, I get a little confident, I strut a little better, and then all of a sudden I go, "Uh-oh, this can't be real. This is not gonna go the way I want it to." Yeah, but, like, part of the show, and it's probably been really good for me, honestly, like, part of the producer's job when you are the Bachelor is to pump you up, is to make you feel as cool about yourself as you possibly can, and so you spend enough time with them, you're like, "I am great. Like, I am the best."
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
That's really cool.
That's great.
I don't think I'll ask any other
Oh,
questions.
man. She'll be connecting with you offline via
Yeah.
That's
DMs.
fine too.
Yeah. I'll shoot you a message if I have any other questions.
Deal.
Oh,
Um,
that's great.
but yeah, I think that's really cool that you were like at 25, 26. I can't imagine jumping on there and becoming famous like overnight, basically. So
Well, I
that's a
mean,
lot. But I do have kind of a question, not so much about The Bachelor, but so a lot of people, like after they come out of The Bachelor, I feel like they start a business or they do something entrepreneurial. Like your co host with Ashley and her, I don't know if she's a co owner with Jared in the cafe that they have. Like, what do you think's like behind that? That so many Bachelor Nation people come out of it, like, and start something.
Well, I think I mean, if I would have to simplify it, it's down to that you're handed this platform. And you're handed this platform of, sometimes a million plus followers without like a tangible skill set. So, you're not a musician, you're not an artist. And so the big question at some point everybody asks is, what am I going to do with this? And you could go to all the bars and all the clubs and get paid stupid amount of money to do like appearances. Or you can kind of, I think, create something that could far outlive you and bring more value to your life than you'd ever create on your own by, giving up your time and energy. And so I think that's a piece of it. I don't know, I think, Caitlin's wine has done incredible. Obviously, Jared and Ashley have that amazing coffee shop. Becca Kufrin has her wine. Then you have like the Beccatillies and the JoJo's that have done incredible collaborations with furniture companies and clothing companies. I think really it comes down to this opportunity that you have to have a platform to get a million eyeballs on your product within seconds for free. And that feels like a resource that should not just be pushed aside. I think the big question there is what items or what business you want to create and how successful can this be in the long term? Can it sustain itself, or are these kind of flash successes that are end up, going to be exhausting and diminish not only your platform but your brand and also kind of any future successes you have? And so I would say the big reason is because most people go on the show. A stereotype may be true, maybe not. Most people do have to quit their jobs to go on this show. So they're unemployed coming off of it. The few that end up becoming the leads or become very recognizable from the show are now unemployed with a following. And so you ask yourself, what do I do? And it's, I'm going to make money using this platform. And that's kind of where it starts. I don't know if I think, for me as a lead, it's my experience, and I think it is a lot with the other like kind of male leads, is our like influencer opportunities are a lot less than the women because it's just the way it is. Like men aren't being influenced that often, and they're also not being influenced. Like, and our following from the show is mostly women, and so as a result, like they're not hiring me on and paying me a lot of money to do these collaborations. And so for me, in my experience, that's when I said I have to create something on my own. Nobody's going to hand me this thing. Nobody's going to create it for me. If I waste too much time here, this kind of flash of fame is going to be completely gone. And so I've got to get to work. We've got to create something that people will grab onto. And that's, where Generous came. Now, obviously, I don't make money on Generous, and I never will because we donate everything away. And so my hope is that, this will always be a passion project of mine, a legacy builder, and then I'll always have other ways to, find an income. I think other people find great success and make great money from these projects.
And is your income coming from the 22 restaurants?
That's part of it. Yeah. I also have an initial investment into a company called Cali Water. That's going to be, it's all in all the Sprouts right now, but it's going to be nationwide and a bunch of really cool retailers that I can't announce yet. It's going to be a massive, it already is a big company, and it's going to be even bigger. I also did around, it's Cali water, it's cactus water, it's incredible. So it's a good alternative to coconut water. It's less sugar, it's more hydrative.
What's the
It's
potassium like in it?
it's really high. I mean,
Really?
incredibly high.
Because that's
Yeah.
I got addicted to coconut water because my nutritionist said I was low on potassium. I was like
Yeah.
chugging a big thing a day.
Well, I
Yeah,
also
it's really healthy for
I saw that you
so
had like was it called like hooch booch or something?
yeah,
Wait,
so
what?
I'm
Hooch
not making that up.
yeah, Hooch Booch is a hard kombucha company that should be actually coming to your area very soon if it's not already in Whole Foods. And it has generous coffee in it. And so it's an espresso martini hard kombucha drink. And so it's really fun, funky. It's canned. And then I have initial investment into years ago. We helped kind of right after the show. I came across this men's skincare line called Black Wolf that is in Target's going to be nationwide, and it's online right now. And Black Wolf has been really done really well over the last few years, and kind of taking its next season of life, whatever that looks like. And you can find Black Wolf, for any men's skincare needs. And then, the restaurants and the podcast and the book. So like there's, I think a lot of my life now, which I have a lot of fun with, is investing into starting up things, but also just finding ways to supplement, this project called Generous that I care so much about and that I want to believe that I want to see succeed. And so, I'm always looking for ways to create, supplemental income so I can continue to work for Generis as much as I do and not have to. I mean, I never will get paid from it. It's in our operating agreement and our bylaws. But, you know, one of the reasons Generis is even able to exist today, because it obviously takes a lot of capital to start up a coffee business, get a building, get employees, is because of these other projects, myself and then some people I've been really gifted to work with have helped give the money to keep this thing going and to keep it, growing.
How many people are on the generous team?
10, give or take. We do a lot of contract work. We contract a lot of our efforts. We also have like coffee shops that, have representation of Generous there. But I would say at any given moment, 10 is a good number. I think we need to grow a little bit with our staffing needs. So if anybody's listening and they ever want to use Generous in their cafes, in their churches, schools, we do customized bags. So we can white label, co-label, and sell these, give you these bags, and we do a really good deal with them. We're one of the cheaper specialty coffee companies. And so please reach out at info@generousmovement.com.
Wow, yeah. I love how diversified you
Yeah.
are. I had no
I wish we
idea.
started writing all of
I
his
know.
adventures
It's
on the
really
whiteboard
cool.
behind us.
And I don't know, like I didn't really know how the I don't what do you call it?
He said for
Nonprofit
profit.
for
It's
It's
for
a
profit.
for-profit. We've coined a term for purpose.
Yes,
And so
that's
just
what I was looking
now
for.
no longer is a for-profit or nonprofit, because what happens is everybody asks us, well, why aren't you just a nonprofit? And there's a lot of kind of issues with us selling a product, being product focused, and becoming a nonprofit. And so we are a for-profit because we want to take on investment. We want to grow. We want to scale. We want to hopefully one day sell this brand for, $1 billion and donate $1 billion to these nonprofits. Because again, if anybody's curious, legally, I can never take money from this company, and my co-owners can never take money from this company. And so if we sell for $1 billion, we're donating $1 billion. And so we want to be a for-profit business so that we can kind of go down that path.
That's really
Wow.
cool. And you guys just opened like a new space, right? Can you go in there? Is it like a coffee shop that like I could walk in and grab a cup of coffee?
Yeah, so it's our roastery, it's our packaging facility. It also has a counseling center in there for next step counseling. And so anybody that's maybe getting out of rehab or been previously incarcerated, they can meet in there and kind of get next step programming. But it's also a co-working space. So we have drip coffee in there that you can donate to our nonprofits when you pay for it. You can't pay us to have this drip. So if you want it for free, a lot of people just get it for free. And then 2 doors down from us, there's a coffee shop called The River, and The River is serving Generous coffee. And so our hope, and what The River's hope is that people go down there, buy Generous from them, and then they come down and sit and work and kind of hang out in our space. And that our space is not only this branding opportunity, it's also this kind of like, hey, Generous has allowed us this free internet, this free space to work, this free cup of coffee. They've taught us about roasting. They've taught us about all these things. I want to talk about this brand. I want to be proud of this brand because this has been built for the community. And it's only going to be successful if the community buys into it. And so it's not exactly a coffee shop, but it is a space that you could walk into and hang out at. And so right when we get done here, I'm heading downtown to Warsaw, Indiana to hang out in our shop.
Roast coffee, I thought.
Wow.
No, I don't know how to roast coffee. I don't know
Well,
how to roast coffee.
I've roasted coffee before, one time when I was in Ecuador, so I could teach you something.
Yeah, please do.
Man,
Dang.
that is
We love a good co-working space.
me
And
too. Maybe we'll
Yeah,
have to
it's
pop
fun.
up.
I was gonna say, if only.
Well, I mean, that's not that
Well,
far from
Quick
Madison.
little jaunt.
Our space, I think, has been unique and it was created this way. So you have these people, incredible humans that have maybe just got out of jail the day before, right? Sitting next to the mayor of our town or the superintendent of our schools, or we have 5 Fortune 200 companies here in Warsaw, Indiana that are orthopedics or focused in orthopedics. So they can use this space to meet in. So that all these people could be sitting side by side, having different types of meetings, but all within the same space. And so they're learning about each other, they're understanding each other, they're familiar with each other. You know, now when you walk in and you see a familiar face, you say hi, obviously, hey, good to see you again. And so the hope is this little space downtown can be a really cool space where all walks of life, no matter what your background or story, could sit side by side and get to know each other better.
So, Ben, a lot of our listeners are either early stage entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs. And so we want to talk a little bit more about that beginning entrepreneurial journey for you, the restaurants. Can you talk a little bit more about what those early days were like for you?
You know, I'm always hesitant to give advice because everybody's experience looks so different. And I think one of the coolest things about the entrepreneurial journey is that the journey itself is going to create these incredible differences and unique factors in each business that's going to make it different than the other or different than previous. But some of the things that I can speak of in my experience, I think, is that it's never been easy, no matter which business I've been a part of. Easy is not why you get into this. I think the second factor is most of the time in my life, I've been entering into industries and sectors that I've had no clue about. You know, if you've listened to my story, you hear that I went from being a user manual writer in a business, like a tech company, to then transferring over to reality television, to then transferring into podcasting, to then transferring into restaurants and kind of investing. None of those have built on each other. They've all been new. And so as a result, there's a massive learning curve. And I would never claim to be the smartest human in the United States or even within my own household. My wife is a lot smarter than me. But so there's many moments where you feel like you're building the plane and flying it at the same time. And let me tell you this story. When I first started Generous, I was asked to be on a panel of 5 other executives. It's funny that they would even consider me executive. I was an executive of 1 at that point myself. And so we sit on this panel, and usually when it comes to public speaking, I always get nervous. That's never been something that's gone away from me, but I speak quite often. And so I'm usually nervous but confident, and nervous but relaxed, anxious but able to deliver a message. And at this moment, I'm having like those brain spins. I'm nervous. I'm sweating. I don't feel comfortable. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't even know what I could speak to. And one of the CEOs, she was the CEO, you would all know her, of this large investment firm, was on the panel with me. And she comes back to the corner and she's like, "Hey, you look really nervous." And I'm like, "I'm super nervous." And she's like, "Why are you nervous?" And I'm like, "Because I don't belong here. Like, all of you are running these incredible companies and have had great success in your careers. And I, at this point in time, have had a bunch of businesses that have opened and failed. I don't know what I'm doing." And she goes, "Hey, I got a secret for you." She's like, "I'm not even trying to help you feel better." She goes, "None of us know what we're doing. We're all building the plane and flying at the same time." She goes, "What you can get better at is your reaction. You can get better at how you adapt and how you mold and your problem solving. But when it comes down to the details, when it comes down to knowing exactly how to predict what's going to be done next quarter or forecast out to a year, or to know all the variables that are going to come into your business when it comes to employees or pandemics or real estate costs or taxes, whatever, you never really know. And so you're always building a plan and flying it at the same time." And so that would be my advice to simplify everything I just said. is to get comfortable being uncomfortable and to get comfortable being in the unknown and to get really good at just paying attention and being curious to what's in front of you and to ask the right questions, even to yourself a lot of times, so that you can maybe not get the perfect solution, but at least you can get a solution that builds upon itself over time. And so I think when it comes to the restaurants, entering into one of the riskiest industries in the world, it was always about being curious about what does the consumer actually want and need. Like, what are they saying that we need to be adaptable to? Being open to the criticism and being able to then pivot based on that criticism, but also not pivot every time. So here's a really, kind of why I'm saying curious and to being uncomfortable. You have to know your intentions and all of these things. So sometimes the consumer is always right, but they don't exactly understand where your business is trying to go. And so you need to listen, you need to hear, and then you need to process with your team or with yourself and ask the question, is this going to be best for us now? Will this make us a better business, a more approachable business, one that people can be proud of, one that they want to get brand support into? And so you just have to always be like malleable. And I think when executives or entrepreneurs or founders start to fail, especially the founder's journey. The founder's journey is super interesting because as they get later on in their life and as they realize that this thing that they love, that they created, that they've had so much heart and soul into is now starting to be ripped apart from them, probably by a board or by a team or just by age in general, they start to hold on tighter and tighter and tighter. And it ultimately ends up affecting the business in devastating ways. It happens over and over again. And so I think one of the best lessons that we can continue to do, and it's one of the things because of my faith and because of the calling of my faith to be childlike in all situations. One of those things is like, as a business leader, I need to be childlike in my adaptability and my curiosity and my malleability, to never hold on to it too tightly, to always be willing to listen. And I think as a result, you're going to build a lot of brands, a lot of businesses. They're going to be really approachable and people are going to get really excited about.
Wow. That's great advice.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You're so well spoken.
Yeah, you are.
Have you always been like this?
No,
It's that PR training.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my gosh. It's like,
I'm a robot.
no. Seriously, when you talk, I'm just like, it's like music to my ear. I don't know. Anyways,
You have a great voice.
yeah, great radio voice for iHeartRadio.
Yeah.
No wonder it's
exactly.
working out. No wonder it's
Deep
working
and
out.
nasally. It's perfect.
No, it's great. I have one question selfishly I want to know. Do you help your wife out with her business? Are you, because we both have significant others that, once in a while we pull in, we're like, hey, get your ass over here. I need help immediately. Is it kind of like that, like the grind for her? Is she a little bit earlier stage, or she owns an
Yeah.
aesthetic studio, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, her business is the most successful business I've ever seen or experienced. And it's, only 2 years old in terms of profitability, efficiencies. I help when it comes to like setting up shelving in that thing and like maybe building, some type of like desk. A lot of her experience is different. I don't know a lot about skincare. I would never claim to.
Aren't you an investor in a skincare company though? Right?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about skincare. I know what I said.
We need to talk more about this, but anyways.
Yeah, you should see Black Wolf. It's literally black tubes that say face wash or lotion. That's
Easy
kind of
for
Bro,
men.
yeah.
yeah. It's not like very difficult to understand what they're trying to do. Keep it easy, keep it simple for those of us that don't know. Over time here recently, as my wife and I are starting to family plan and starting to talk about what the future looks like for us, she is coming to that moment where she's like, I'm no longer able to give the amount of time I've been giving to this business. So what does that look like? And I've had conversations with her about that. Is okay, how do we build new efficiencies and kind of what is your brain, but it's more me asking questions, not having answers for her, because I don't want to again tell her how to run her business unless she directly asks me, hey, I'm having a hard time running my business. I want her to explore this and to learn on her own and continue to create something that represents her so well. But we have started to have more conversations like logistically, what do we need to do? What do you need to do to implement ways where you don't have to be there 6 days a week, 10 hours a day? What can you start to do now so that when crunch time happens and we're like on the brink of that, you don't have to like react and freak out and do something. And so we have started talking about that. And I do help. I hope I help her there. I don't know if I actually do, but I at least am there to hear it.
That's really cool. I feel like we're kind of at that point where we're, like, trying to figure out, "Okay, well, you more so than me."
Well, that was because it was a force. Like, I opened up my store this past September, and then my now husband, well, he proposed. He was my boyfriend at the time, proposed a week later, and I was like, "Bro, I'm way
He
too
asked me
busy."
if he could do it the day of, and I told him, "Can and no."
No, and then I was like, "I am really busy right now.
Yeah.
Like, this is not the best time." But then because of that, I was forced to, like, promote my general manager and then my other full-time employee, and they run the day-to-day. Like, when I got married and went on a honeymoon for 2 weeks, they didn't call me. I actually felt, a little sad. They didn't need me. I was like, "What's my next venture now? They don't need me anymore." But you guys
Yeah.
both you and your wife both sound very busy. When did you guys meet? Like, how did you have time to meet?
We met when I was in Nashville for a fundraiser, and I saw her picture on Instagram, and I messaged her.
The
Mm.
DM slide, okay.
Yeah, and it worked. And so, I mean, we are both kind of running. I work from home, so I'm home a lot. And so when she's home, I'm home. I travel a lot right now. That's been difficult for us. Maybe not relationally, just for me mostly. It's hard for me to be gone from her and our pup and our house and a rhythm and a routine. But I think, one thing that has helped, and this sounds simple and our relationship is very healthy, is we always have dinner together. And to keep in touch with each other, we ask, what's your highlight and low light from the day? And we get to keep in touch with each other's stories and what's going on at work that way. And I think that's been really fun for the two of us, is to continue to stay, you know, connected through dinners, through the right questions. And then we do a lot of things that we love to do together. We love to walk together, hike together, go out to dinners together. But at this point in our life, it's kind of fun because we both, I think, fully support each other kind of running these races and knowing that neither of us have the mindset of this is going to be a forever thing. These things are, we're doing this now so that later on we have more flexibility.
Mhm.
I feel like that
That's really
that kind of goes into another question we always ask our guests is, you're running this race. What are you running for? What does success look like for you?
Well, for me, it's 100% what stories I can be a part of. Success for me, I think is far beyond the financial gains. Obviously, my full-time job is one I don't get paid for. It's the stories that we're able to be a part of, the moments that we're able to share, the things that I can tell my grandkids about one day that I was able to do, places I was able to see, the people I was able to meet. I just believe a generous heart and giving to others is far more satisfying than consuming myself. And so success for me looks like giving more than I take. And I think as a result, there's a personal benefit to that as well.
I always love asking this question.
I know.
Like
It's always
we've
so
gotten some
different.
really good
Yeah.
ones this month with
Yeah.
some other guests that we'll have in the future. But
What was, like, the biggest setback, and how did you overcome that?
A lot of the journey is a setback. Like I said, I had some really cool things that I thought were going to be great that opened and failed. And those are always hard to close down, to tell the people, hey, we're no longer doing this. It can no longer sustain itself. I also think, when it comes to even my time not getting a job out of college, your confidence gets shot. And then you get to your job and you don't love it, you're not good at it, your confidence is shot. And so I think for me, it's mostly been a where is my value existing in this world at question. And how I overcome that is continue to speak some truth into myself that because I have breath and I have life, I have value in this world, and that my value is not necessarily dependent on maybe how much money I make or to what position I get promoted to. My value is what am I involving myself in, and how much of my life has been about pursuing a passion and a purpose compared to maybe the things that I'm not passionate and purpose filled about. So I overcome it by continuing to speak that truth into me is knowing I have value and that everybody listening to this, that everybody's walking this earth has a value. And then knowing that that value can be used hopefully for good. And when it's used for good, I got to believe it's worth it. And that over time, the more I fill my life up with great people, good stories, and giving back, the more fulfilled I'll be. And also the more realistic I'll be about, myself and my family as a person.
Ben, we can't thank you enough for your time this morning with your 75 businesses,
Yeah.
being an investor, just everything going on in your life. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
giving us your story. And how can our listeners support you and find you?
They can visit my social media, which is mostly Instagram. It's Higgins.ben. Maybe the most helpful way, like I said, if you're looking to do your own white labeling, co-labeling, any coffee needs that you have, wholesale, retail, to your house, subscription, go to generouscoffee.com. Those are the two best ways right now to kind of find out what's going on and connect a little more.
Go and buy some generous coffee. I know that Shelby and I and Mr. Producer are going to purchase a bag or two today. And we're hoping Ben packs it individually on his own. So, yes. Okay, Shelby. And where can they find our podcast?
You can find us at Screw It, Let's Do This on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Therese, where can they find you?
You can find me at Tricky Foods.
You can find me at Miggy's Bakes.
And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.